Jenny, welcome to Shifting Culture. So excited to have you on. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
In your book, Trust God, Love People, which is fantastic, you write about picking up heart shaped stones as tangible markers of God's faithfulness. What stone are you carrying around right now? What's a marker that you have at the moment?
Oh gosh. I would say right now we've just been walking through a season of loss.
Mm,
We've lost a lot of people that are close to us. It's been a really hard, probably 4 months. But 2 weeks ago, Dave's mom passed away, and she was just one of the best humans I know, and she's a
yeah.
model of how to be an incredible mother-in-law. But this past weekend, Dave and I had to go out of town for a home show that we had already committed to, a speaking event. And we went to dinner the night we were gone one night, and we went out to dinner, and there was a table next to us, and they were just, it was four women, and they were kind of chatting and stuff, and they said hello. They noticed Dave and I, and had, said they watched the show, and we were like, oh, thank you, and where are you guys from? And we got into a conversation, and it turns out that it was a wife and a daughter. I mean, a mom and a daughter, and then a sister and a daughter. And they were on this trip because the mom had just recently, and the daughter had just lost her dad, and the mom had lost her
Mm,
husband. And we were like, oh my gosh. And Dave's parents are Catholic, and so they always would pass out rosaries. Like that was something his mom always did. And so this woman handed us, she said, you know what, I just feel like I'm meant to give this to you. She took it out of her pocket and she gave it to Dave.
mm,
And it was like just this sweet
wow.
little, just a God wink moment that we were like, oh, it just reminded us of
Yeah.
Dave's mom, because that would be something she would do. But then also that we were really, we've been obviously so sad, and we were like, oh, do we go on this trip? Like, whoa, do we leave the kids? And we already had this commitment. And it was just like this moment of God saying, I see you. And
Mm,
it was it was a really sweet moment, and for us too, for that other, the table next to us, for us to say to them, like, we see you, God sees you as well. Like, it was really beautiful. So it was a really sweet moment. Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a beautiful, sweet moment, and grief is hard, and when God gives you those things of saying, I'm with you, I see you, and
Mhm.
am present. It's really such a gracious, beautiful moment that we have to be able to have that there, and and you'll find that it continues as the grief
Yeah.
webs and wanes and flows through you. Like, there's going to be presence, and you talk a lot about that in your book, is that the in between time and the waiting time of hoping for something, and you're holding on to hope but really not knowing if something is going to happen. What rhythms have you found in your life to keep hope alive and don't calcify yourself into like denial and bitterness?
Yeah. I think one thing I've learned in seasons of, particularly of waiting, is I found that those are the seasons where God's using or working on my heart and trying to teach me something. And so it's not easy. It takes a while to get there, but I have found that if I get to the point of saying, okay, God, what should I be learning in this season of
Yeah.
waiting, then he then does teach me and reveals those things to me. And once I get to that heart posture, but at first it's like, just give me the thing that I want, and we need to get to the end of this part right now. I'm sick of this part because
Yeah.
this is the hard stuff. But I know in those moments he is working, because those are the times when I, at least, am relying on him the most, is when
Mm,
I'm in those either really hard seasons of, like now, of grieving, or if we're waiting for something, or when we were waiting for our daughter to come home, or waiting to have kids, or
Yeah.
waiting for healing, all of those things. Those are the times that I had nothing else to lean on but to lean on God and to just keep coming
Mm.
to him, asking and asking. Because I think sometimes in the sort of like abundant, restful, easier seasons, because everybody has all of those, like that is life,
Yep.
you're going to have seasons of rest, but sometimes those seasons you can sort of take God for granted, like you're just kind of cruising
Mm.
along and you know you're doing your thing, and maybe they're not even restful seasons. Honestly, it's sometimes the really busy just seasons of life. Like, I mean, right now I have teenagers and work, and like I feel like this is a really busy season. So you're just sort of plowing ahead and making it through day by day, and you almost like forget to rely on God in
Mm.
those times. So I think using or looking at like kind of changing our perspective on seasons of waiting or seasons of hardship, and looking at those and as an opportunity to learn something in that
Yeah.
time, and as an opportunity for your heart to be shaped, and as an opportunity to lean fully on the Lord, and knowing that he can work in those times just as well as the mountaintop joyful times,
Mm.
and probably
Well, what
more
does
so.
that look like? I mean, yeah, but what does that look like for you? So, if somebody that you need to rely on something that
Yeah.
I think God was whispering, I don't fear.
Mhm.
So, if that's a big thing for you, it's probably because there's some fear in life of and worry and
Yeah.
trying to rely on God,
Mhm.
especially in a season like you're in now, in grief and loss and in busyness at the same time. What
Mhm.
is what is like tangible presence with God feel like for you? Like, where can you find rhythms to say I could slow down and I could actually sense or know that God is with me in these times where it may be chaotic or fearful?
Oh gosh, yeah. I think in terms of like what does it look like tangibly, I there's times, and I start off in the morning in the word in some capacity, and I've been doing the Bible recap. I love it. It's
Hmm.
something that just gives, sometimes, like right now I'm in Leviticus. I'm not following like the January to December, but like sometimes like Leviticus is kind of hard and kind of dry and kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, gory. Like I don't want to talk about slaughtering animals, but just getting and doing it every day and spending, whatever, however amount of time that looks like. Sometimes it's 10 minutes. But I think that act, like that, just doing it over and over, the actual,
Mm-hmm.
showing up part of it is really important. Even if
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you feel like, oh, I didn't really get anything from that. But I think it's very important. I think it builds just, planting the word on your heart, and it builds so much in that discipline. And then I think for me, I do have I mean, I just talked about I traveled. We had to fly, and I hate flying. I used to love flying and I hate it now. I'm scared of it. I mean, I have this like, sometimes it's okay and sometimes I'm fine. And then usually when it's Dave and I away from the kids, I'm worried,
Yeah.
and I remember being a kid, and we never flew anywhere because first of all, we couldn't afford to fly anywhere, but also my mom didn't ever want to fly. She was afraid of it as well. And so I always kind of felt like if it was something my mom was scared of, then it's a
Mm.
scary thing. And so I don't want my kids to be afraid of flying. And I try not to
Yeah.
ever impart that onto them. But I do feel like I have this, God just I always want to try. I love traveling. I want to go see new places, and I want to go visit friends that he's put on our hearts that live far away. And I feel like when I'm flying, it's one of those times that I'm like, okay, this is truly, it's out of my control, Lord. I have to hand it over to you. So it's like
Yeah.
this act of surrender that I either cannot go or I can choose to trust him. And sometimes I'm really freaking out, honestly, like not good. But I have to choose to trust him in that moment because I
Mm.
have to get on
Yeah.
the plane. And so I think it's those like just sort of, even if you're afraid, doing it anyway, because you have to have the markers of
Mm.
faithfulness. You have to learn who God is, and you have to continue to just look back on who he is and what he's done for you in the past so that you can trust him now and trust
Mm.
him in your future, and know that at the end of the day, no matter what happens, because bad things just happen. I mean, that's just part of life. It's not
Yeah.
always going to be, you were not promised that if we choose to follow God, follow Jesus, that everything goes great, goes
Yeah.
perfectly. We're actually told the opposite. But we just have to keep that eternal perspective, and also remembering who God is. And I think that's, for me, the key is like, okay, what is the heart of God? And the heart of God is love. And all of the, all of the names of God, and how faithful he is, and how
Yeah.
he's slow to anger, and he's a shelter, and all of those things, and just kind of reminding ourselves of who he is
Mm.
in those times when, when fear comes or
Mm.
sorrow comes. But yeah, resting in that, and then having that discipline, like I said, I think is really important. Whether, and that looks different for everyone. For me, it's I if I don't get into scripture first thing in the morning, I will get busy in the day, and it just probably won't happen. So I do
Yeah.
try always first thing to spend time in the word.
Yeah, I mean, this is the book title, "Trust God, Love People." It's more than just a book title. It's part of what you're trying to do in life. Like, this is who
Right.
you are. Where did it become real for you in your life? Where is this trust God, love people?
I think, when we first, Dave, I grew up in the church. I grew up, my family had a wonderful family. I had a wonderful experience. I felt like, as a like teenager and young 20 something, I was just kind of like cruising along. I've always been sort of driven in terms of like achievement, and just doing whatever I needed to get done. I could just work harder and do it. And it was when Dave and I first decided we were ready to have kids, and we were like, okay, that's what we're gonna do. Let's go. And then they didn't, it didn't happen. And
Mm,
we struggled for several years trying to have children. And I think that one, I know that was the first time that there was ever something that was truly just out of my control. Like, I couldn't just
yeah,
work harder or do something different or go to a different doctor or solve the problem on my own. It truly was
yeah,
a season of learning to fully surrender and fully trust that
mm,
God's working in this, and how can he be working? Because I did at the same time believe that he put that desire on my heart. So I knew, because I wasn't one of those kids who grew up thinking I want to have a lot of kids when I grew up. And I didn't even know if I wanted to have kids. My mom always laughs because she's like, you have 5 kids, and I didn't know if you would ever have any. And so all of a sudden it was like, I wanted to. And I thought, well, all right, this is something I want. So I'll go, now it's time. And so I knew that God put the desire there, but he also
mm,
used that time to change my heart and to learn who he really is, and to really learn to surrender and be open-handed with my life, and the things that are in my life, and the people that are in my life. I think that was
mm,
probably the first turning point in my 20s. And then the loving people piece. I mean, I've always been people pleaser. And so I think that's different than loving people.
yeah,
Pleasing people, you're just never going to please everyone. It's impossible. But having a viewpoint towards others that is bent on compassion is really important. And I think I say
mm,
that because I think we don't really know what everyone's carrying. And I think
yeah,
everyone that we interact with is carrying something, and we have no idea what that is. And so I think that always leaning into compassion first, and thinking, you know what, this person is, for example, maybe really rude to me today, but I have no idea what happened just before our interaction. And so I have to just view them from that lens. And they
yeah,
may not like me, they may totally disagree with me, all of the
mm,
things. But if I can view them as a child of God, I then can can move forward in that, and I don't have to make it about me, and I don't have to
yeah,
make it about me, and they don't have to be my best friend, and I don't have to spend a ton of time with them, but I can compassionately love them in a tangible way. That's what's required of me in that moment. But I also just don't have to be angry with people, because there's
Mm,
a lot of opportunities right now in our world to be angry with one
yeah.
another and somebody else's opinion or all the things. And I just, if you're if you're letting go of that, it's about me perspective, and it's actually really genuinely you're trying
Mm,
to live the Jesus life of loving people, then you
yeah.
can passionately view people from a lens of, okay, we may disagree, but that's okay. I
Yeah.
it's not my job to make you think like me or be like me. That's just not my job, but I can show up for you, or I can offer you just a
Mm,
kind smile, or yeah, I think it's just those that viewpoint of how to view people
yeah.
is through a lens of compassion would be, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, for me.
I think
What's
compassion is such a key and a helpful thing in this world, and especially in the world of our polarization and our us versus them mentality that we have in this world. That we need to see people that they are made in the image of God. They're fully human and made, and God loves them. We should actually see them with compassion as well. I think in that trusting part and then trusting God, I think when we it took about 5 years for us to have kids as we once we started trying, and it
Yeah.
was really hard. And I think the biggest piece for during that time for my wife especially was a comparison thing, like, God, why are you giving them babies and not me? Like, why not me? Why not me? And I think it's a hard place to be in when
Yes.
you're like, hey, there's a desire, and we think, and it's a good desire, and it's a
Yeah.
desire that's from God, but we aren't seeing it yet.
Yeah.
How did you like, I don't know if you struggle with comparison and like struggle with that, but how do you get to a place where, it's not just about why didn't you give this to me, God, but I'm going to trust you in it.
Mhm. Yeah. No, that's a hard one because I do remember one time specifically sitting in the waiting room at another appointment and looking around, and everyone else there was pregnant. And I was like, oh, and I left that appointment and just sat in my car and cried and cried and cried. And my sister-in-law called and let me know she was pregnant, and I cried and cried and cried, and I'm happy for her. And it was just I couldn't separate my joy for her versus my pain for myself.
Yeah.
And I I think well, I don't know if I ever really got there perfectly, but I really did get to a place where I said, even if, and
Mm,
had to get to that place. It was like the rock bottom moment of like, I either trust you or I don't. And I
yeah.
don't know how this ends. Like, I have no way to know if I'll ever have kids, but I know that
Mm,
you are trustworthy, and I have to choose to walk in faith because I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I have to believe that I can only see just so far ahead, but you can see much further ahead. And if that's the case, then what I can see feels really sad. And I'm feeling a lot of self pity, and I'm feeling a lot of, yes, this comparison. But I have to trust that there's something on the other side. And now, obviously, all these, the boys, my oldest are 15, the twins. So 15, 16 years later, it's easy to say because
yeah.
here I am and I have 5 kids. But in that moment and in that season, I I don't I I did get to that place of fully surrendering, but I don't know that I ever
Mm,
got to the place of saying of not feeling sad still when someone else was pregnant.
yeah.
And it wasn't that I was at the like towards, the end, once I was finally feeling like, okay, Lord, I really do trust you. I don't think it was like there was times when I was mad at God, definitely. But towards the
Yeah.
end, it was just like, you know what? I'm sad. And I kind of feel like that's okay. And
Mm,
I think
yeah.
he was okay with that.
Yeah.
And there was times when I just didn't go to baby showers, or I just couldn't be there, for a friend. And I
Hmm.
hated that. And I afterward,
Mm,
like my sister-in-law, I had to apologize to her afterward, but it just really was a matter of protecting my heart. And I didn't want to become bitter, and I didn't want to become cynical. And that was very hard. But I got to a place of fully surrendering, but I wasn't not sad. I think that's okay
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah.
I don't for some reason I started thinking about a Bluey episode of an episode of Bluey where
Yeah.
they actually deal with a sister not being able to have children and kids
Oh, wow.
in this kids show. It's like
Yeah.
deep and all the
Wow.
kids are playing, but then it's so beautiful to actually see the sadness of somebody not being able to have a child, but actually wanting to be in the lives of her family and her nieces that and
Yes.
it's really difficult and hard for her.
Yes.
So as you're going through this process, you're there, what did you decided to adopt and you decided to go through the adoption process? What did that look like for you? What was that decision like? And how was it waiting for that?
So while we were still trying to have kids, we thought, well, okay, maybe this is not like Dave and I had already talked about adoption. Actually, we thought we would grow our family through adoption at some point.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, maybe that's what's happening. It was one of those where, again, we were just like trying to solve the problem. Like, okay, well, it's not working this way. Okay, never mind. We'll do this. And let me tell you, you can't just solve the problem. So we were like, all right, adoption. We started researching, and then it was like we were chasing all of these paths of like, oh, there's a baby that was at the children's shelter. Okay, this could be it. And then, that door would close, or there's this waiting child in the Ukraine, and that door would close. And like we were trying to scramble to get paperwork, and it felt like a scramble. And then we ended up getting pregnant. And so we put all of the adoption stuff on hold. And I felt really confused because I was like, wait, I do feel like even though it was frantic, God used that time to really open my eyes up to adoption and
Yeah.
to all of the complicated layers of it, but then also the beauty of it and also the need of kids here and
Mm.
abroad. And so after the boys were about a year and a half, I felt very strongly that it was time to start our adoption again. And I mean, we were like barely breathing, like surviving at this point because the boys were only a year and a half old and it was
Yeah.
just chaos. And so I didn't say anything to Dave because I thought he would think I was crazy. And then Dave came home one day and was like, hey, let's go for a walk. And we're on a walk. And he's like, hey, I
Mm.
think we're supposed to start the adoption process again. I feel like we are. And I was like, ugh. I feel like we are too, but I didn't want to say it because I didn't know. And I wanted us to both be on the same page. So
Mm.
we just both felt very clearly we were called to adoption. And then and I talk about the story in the book. It's kind of a long story, but it was God brought our daughter to us in a way that was like so clear. And he made it so clear that she was our daughter
Mm.
through so many different like very tangible things that happened. And I'm thankful he did because we were also stepping into a huge spiritual battle at that point, and
Mm.
we knew it and we felt it. And so we needed to have clarity. We needed very clear discernment, and we had a lot of people praying for discernment for us, making sure that we were on the right path, because this obviously is a huge thing. But we also, in that process, when we started the process with Sylvie's adoption, she was born in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and there was just a lot of turmoil, political
Yeah.
instability, a lot of things happening, and she was very sick. And honestly, day to day, we did not know if she was even alive, much less if she would be able to come home ever, because they put a halt on any adopted children leaving the country at one point. And so that process was, again, it was like, oh, it was like what we had experienced with trying to get pregnant times a billion, because she was alive and
Yeah.
and we met her and we held her, and she was being
Mm.
held from us essentially.
Mm.
Almost the only way I can describe it is that she was like being held ransom, but we couldn't pay the
Mm.
ransom. Like we couldn't get
Wow.
her. We couldn't get to her.
Yeah.
And she was legally our daughter. She had her U.S. visa, and she wasn't allowed to leave. And the U.S.
Mm.
embassy told us we could try to get her out of the country, But if we did and we were caught, we would go to prison for child trafficking, even though she was our
Wow.
daughter legally. And
Wow.
and we were like, yeah, that's not a good idea. Let's not do that. But we basically had everyone and anyone helping us. We were talking to our senators and our congressmen and and we were just on our faces before the Lord during that season of like,
Mm.
Lord, this and it like it was truly impossible. Like every day was just so hard because we again didn't know if she was alive, if she every day.
Yeah.
She was in and out of the hospital, which hospital is kind of a generous term for where she was. But again, we got to the point where we had a dear friend who became a dear friend over the course of those years. And she is an amazing woman. She's Congolese. Her husband had passed. She had 6 kids of her own, and she took Sylvie into her home for us.
Mm.
We got to the point where we talked to her and had prayed, and we basically were like, okay, this is it. Like, I don't think she's ever coming home. We need you. You need her to live with you forever. Like, we don't know. Maybe someday, maybe 10 years from now. But in the meantime, we basically had a contingency plan of sending Sylvie to school and paying for her every month, her needs, but not being able to get her home to us. And
Wow.
we got to that point, and then, like, out of a complete only God miracle, there were about 700 kids that were stuck, and 3 were allowed to leave in July of 2014, which is when Sylvie came home. And we got the news that she was allowed to leave because she had a medical visa and she was on
Hmm.
that medical list. And she was one of the top ones on the list just because of a wait time. And I mean,
Wow.
there was then this incredible Red Sea parting miracle, all of the things. But then there was also the survivor's guilt of all the other kids that got left behind
Yeah.
and the other families that were still waiting. And so there were so many layers to that whole process that we had to really, our faith was tested and refined and all the things. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was, yeah, another season of just being like, okay, Lord, we can't do this on our own. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, talk about inscribing Isaiah 60 verse 4 over the bed, the paint and prayers with your paint pen. And what was
Yeah.
the praying like with that? Why were you inscribing that? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. Well, it's something Dave and I have always done when we've renovated homes and or built our home together. We've always written verses on the walls and the floors before we paint or install flooring. And in Sylvie's room, we just were moving into the farmhouse where we are now. And so Sylvie and I was pregnant at the time, which was a total surprise as well. Like, that was another crazy God story. And I was like, what now? What? So Charlotte and Sylvie were going to be sharing a room. And so over where Sylvie's bed was going to be, I inscribed, your daughters will be carried home. And I I didn't even know. It was just, I just prayed for, what verse to inscribe. And it was Isaiah 64. And I wrote it on the wall, and then we, painted, and I wrote it down in my journal. So I remember, and I always take pictures of what I write and where, so I know what verses are there. But kind of like that, I don't know. I just thought we would carry her home. Like, okay, she's going to
Mm.
be carried
Yeah.
home. I kind of held on to that as like a promise to us. But because of the way, how quickly she was allowed to leave, and the fact that we didn't want to wait because things can change very, very quickly, we wanted to get her out when she was given permission to get out as fast as we could. And I was pregnant, or I had just had Charlotte now. So Charlotte was 8 weeks old, and
Mm.
Dave's visa, he had just been over in February. So we thought his visa was fine, but it wasn't. It expired. So we ended up not having a way to get Sylvie home. We had to reapply for the visa and all of this. And so we actually asked Laura, Sylvie's foster mom, if she would be able to get permission to bring Sylvie home. And we assumed the answer would be no, because we knew that the Congolese officials didn't want anyone that wasn't, the parent
Yeah.
bringing kids home. So we thought the answer would be no, and we would have to wait longer. And anyway, she was allowed to bring her. She got permission. And so literally Sylvie was carried home by her foster mom, who we adored. And I mean, truly believes, actually very much so physically tangibly saved Sylvie's life.
Mm,
And she was able to stay with us for a week during that transition period, and was able to like help Sylvie just know that she was safe, because we had both been to visit and stayed with
mm,
Laura. For Laura to come here and to, she was kind of Sylvie's safe person at the time, and for her to be able
yeah.
to show her and be here with us, it was such a gift
Mm,
that we were, it was beyond what we could have even prayed for,
wow.
honestly. It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what she whispered to you and what she said to you a year later,
Oh, yeah.
it was a tearjerker moment in your book. So what was she able to say?
So, when she first came home, she was didn't speak any English, of course, and she was incredibly traumatized. I know everybody always says how resilient kids are, and they are, but when you've been through the things that she had been through,
Hmm.
it was a very, very hard year when she came home for everyone, including our other kids, because our
Yeah.
boys were only 4. And then we had an 8-week old when she came home. And so Sylvie was 2.5. And so a year later, we were starting to come up for air as a family. We were starting to feel like we could all breathe and not be kind of living in this like trauma every moment.
Mhm.
Like everything was so stressful for that first year and a half. And we were laying in bed one night. I was getting in her bed every night. I had to lay with her. Once she finally moved to her own room, we would take turns, Dave and I, and we'd have to lay in bed with her until she fell asleep.
Mm,
And we would always sing songs, and she wanted to sing Jesus Loves Me. And she had the cutest little, her voice was really raspy when she was little, because she had a lot of airway issues, but it was so cute. And she was doing great at that point. She was healthy, so but it was just adorable,
mm,
and she had this little French accent. Oh, it was adorable. And she said, "Mama, Jesus carried me home."
mm,
And it was the most profound thing. She was 3.5, and she said, "Jesus carried me home." I couldn't even really process like or what to say back to her. And I was like, "Yes, baby, yes, you did." And as I wrote it in my journal again because I didn't want to forget exactly what she had said. And
yeah.
it's one of those like faith like a child moments where she can see something so clearly. And I think for
Mm,
her, it was clear. I think
yeah.
so believed. I had prayed so many times that he would be near her and that he would be tangible to her and that she would feel his embrace. And I, I believe that he was there that whole time in very tangible ways for her
Yeah.
when she was itty
Mm,
bitty. And for her to say that, she doesn't remember it now, but I feel like that was one of those like the veil is thin moments.
yeah.
And I'm thankful that I wrote it down because in the blur of, with little kids and chaos, I could have forgotten that. And that's one of those things I would never
Yeah.
want to forget. Yeah.
Yeah. Such a beautiful moment to see what
Yeah.
God does, especially in the hearts of young people. They're 3 years old, and that he's doing
Yes.
those things, and she could tangibly feel that. It's so beautiful. I think so your work is restoration. Your spiritual metaphor is also restoration. Restoration is who you are, and it's what you do,
Yeah.
and it's what God does. What what does it look like for you in not just in a home, because I know that you do it in homes all the time and you restore homes and make them beautiful and they're great. I love it. But what does it look like to do it in everyday life? Is bringing restoration into everyday
Yeah.
life, into your life.
Oh, I think for me, it's been, I think it's a continual process. I don't think we're ever like, all right, I learned that lesson. Now I'm good. I'm fully restored.
Yeah.
It's just life. We're here on earth and we're broken and all the things. But, I look at the, the way that God has worked in my life through walking through hard things, and I see his hand so clearly in those hard seasons. And like we said with my daughter, like I think one of the most tangible examples of restoration is adoption, because yes, healing is lifelong because trauma is real. It's very real. And, when your brain is forming until you're 2 years old. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're learning what, who, what love is, you're learning who you are in those first 2 years. And so,
Mm.
when those connections are broken at an early age, they're very, very, very hard to restore. I mean, for example, if a
Mm.
baby's crying and they're not being helped, your natural instinct as a mother when your baby's crying is to pick your baby up, to feed it, to comfort her, him, and to
Mm-hmm.
provide that comfort. And that connection is then formed for the baby in their
Yep.
brain. Like if I cry, mom is going to pick me up. I'm going to get fed. I'm safe. And when that doesn't happen, that connection is broken in that baby's brain, and the pathway is never formed properly. And
Mm.
so trying to heal those connections, the human brain is so complicated, and so layered. And so trying to heal those pathways in the brain and trying to create connection with a child who is terrified of everyone and everything has
Mm.
been one of the hardest things I've ever done as a human and as a parent.
Yeah.
And so being able to watch, like, just for example, when Sylvia first came home and was terrified of trees and grass, like
Mm.
anything, like she would not go outside and step on the grass because she'd only ever seen dirt and she'd never seen
Mm.
grass. She'd never seen a tree. And one day we were, going outside with the kids, and she walked out and she didn't have shoes on. And I tried to set her down. I was like, hey, you want to play? And she freaked out and picked her feet up. But then she put her feet down, and then she just started running. And then she like got on this, one day she got on her bike, and it's like all those little things that you almost take for granted
Mm.
when you're just
Yeah.
raising your biological kids. And we just have had this front row seat to just so many moments
Mm.
like that. So many. I mean, animals, we
Mm.
live on a farm. So the animals, again, have been one of those things that Sylvie was terrified of. And now we just put down our dog
Mm.
Dolly.
Mm.
And I won't say what happened when Sylvia first came home, but her and Dolly did not have a good relationship at all, at all. Sylvie
Yeah.
did not like Dolly, didn't want to be around Dolly, didn't want her near. And Sylvie was the one who wanted to be holding Dolly when we had to put her
Mm.
down, and carried her in the car and held her in the car and laid with me that night before we knew we were going to the vet in the morning, and laid next to Dolly with me. And that picture in the
Wow.
past, that's 10 years or so, like, is incredible, what God has
Wow.
done and how he's healed. And not everything, it's a lifelong process, but I think that
Mm.
I've never seen so many tangible examples of restoration and so visible in such a visible way as I have through being an adoptive mom. And I'm grateful because it's not, I mean, we're doing a lot of hard work, but it's God doing the healing. And there's so many prayers that
Yeah.
um, have been poured into her life, and then also our other kids too, and seeing the way that they have learned. And I speak back, it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. They've learned to be compassionate in a way that
Mm.
I don't think they would have been. Well, I don't know. I hope they would have been, but in a really deep, tangible way, because they know how people deal with things that are unseen. So a
Yeah.
lot of times we assume a disability is always visible, but it's not. And so they know that. They've lived
Mm.
that. They've lived with that and through that. And so I think that it's helped them to have compassion on others. And
Mm.
we went to dinner recently with a colleague and his family, someone who we work with and his family. We had never met his family. And he was like, he called us ahead of time. And he's like, I just want to make sure I prepare you guys and you can talk to your kids, ahead of time, because their son is severely autistic. And I was like, okay, no, absolutely. Okay, well, make sure the kids are, like, we'll prepare them.
Yeah.
And like, it wasn't even a thing. Like, our kids were like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, he's obviously dealing with something. And they were just so kind. And
Mm.
um, they met him right where he was. And it was such a beautiful dinner. And I was like, you know what? And afterwards, Dave and I talked about it. I'm like, I think they really do know how to understand that just because someone looks quote unquote normal, that
Mm.
doesn't mean they're carrying something heavy or hard, or their brain may not be functioning the way that
Mm.
everyone else's quote unquote normal
Yeah.
brain emotions. And I think
Mm.
it's been one of the hardest things for sure. Like it's not easy, but it's also been really incredibly beautiful. And I'm so grateful for being able to parent this wonderful person who's incredible.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. I think one of the things I really love in your book is when you hit a wall filming, or when things are really difficult and hard. Which, hey, it's a season now. It's really hard. It's busy. It's difficult. God tells you, go with the strength you
Hmm.
have. What does it look like for you? Just like, what does it look like when God says, go with the strength you have, so that He can be strength for
Hmm.
you?
Oh, yeah. I pray that a lot, especially lately. I love that story of Gideon to be like, hey, I'm not cut out for the job, Lord. And like God was there face to face and he said no. Like,
Yeah.
wow, buddy. But I love that God put that in the Bible for us because it's like, okay, it's okay if I feel very ill equipped and I am very tired and I don't want to do this. And
Yeah.
I don't have the strength to do this. And it's okay. And I think that for me, it's just okay, one small step at a time. So, like for example, we found out the day I was getting ready in the morning. Dave took the kids to school for me because we had a walkthrough. This was in April of this year. We had a walkthrough in the morning, so I had to get ready, do my hair and stuff, which takes forever. And Dave just throws on a hat, so it's quick.
Yeah.
So he takes the kids to school in the morning when we're doing, when we're filming. And I was getting ready, and my friend, our neighbor Jill, called. Her and her husband had gone to South Africa. They were there on vacation, and it's a place that they love, that we love. It's an incredible connection thing. But anyway, she called and told me, and I thought it was odd that she was calling, so I answered.
Mm.
I was like, "Oh, what's going on?" And she told me that Bob had passed away the night before in his sleep,
Mm.
and her husband, and he was
Wow.
basically like a uncle. I mean, my kids called him Uncle Bob. He was our neighbor, but
Yeah.
we've lived here now for 14 years, and he's been a constant in our life. He's here for every holiday, all the things. And so and then Dave came home that morning. He took the kids, and I had to tell Dave. And then the thing is, when we're filming, and especially when we're filming with homeowners,
Yeah.
we have to do it. Like there's a production
That's
schedule.
hard, man. Yeah.
And our camera crew and our producer was in town for this, and we had to film. And so we went, and we can't reschedule with the homeowners because they actually were in town just for this walkthrough because they're not living here yet. So we had to go and film, and I had to like take breaks and just go sit in the garage and cry in between. Like, so those moments, I'm like, oh God, I can't do
Wow.
this. I really just
Yeah.
can't do this. And those are the times I'm like, I need you to get me through this, Mom. Like, I'm not looking at my whole day. I'm looking at
Yeah.
this next, like, we just have to walk through the living room. I need you to get me through walking through the living room. And then I'll take a break and I'll come back out here and cry some more and we'll talk again. And like he
Mm.
did. And so then I'd go, okay, I'm like, okay, now we got to do the kitchen. All right, I have to listen. Because the other thing
Yeah.
is, okay, in a normal job, I could go even if I couldn't reschedule it, I could still go and I could listen and I could do the
Yep.
walkthrough and I could do all the things. But the fact that the cameras were on and I know that
Yeah.
someone's going to watch it and they're going to be like, "Oh, Jenny looks really like, ugh, she doesn't look very nice this morning. Like, what is wrong with her?" Because they're going to judge whatever faces I'm
Mm.
making because I can't pretend to smile right now. And so I'm also having that
Mm.
narrative in my head as well. Like people are going to
Yeah.
watch this. They're going to think, what's wrong with her? And they're not going to know what was really wrong
Mm.
with me that day. And so those moments, yeah, those are the moments that
Mm.
it's really hard. And there's been a lot of those kinds of moments, to be honest, especially because
Wow.
Dave's mom had dementia. And so the past 3 years have been just like a constant grieving of something, like it's just been
Yeah.
it's a very hard road. And so there's been so many times that we'd be driving to a
Mm.
house and I'm crying in the car and they're like, okay. I'm like, all right, here we go. Whew, okay.
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
those are the times it's like, okay, I need your strength, Lord, right now for this
Yeah.
this next hour, I'll give me an hour and then I will worry about the next hour. But I can't think about like, oh, this whole month or this whole
Mm,
year. I can't think of it that way because it's too overwhelming. And I know he meets me right then, and I can, one step at a time, little by
yeah.
little. I like to say that too.
Wow. 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 Thanks. Well, Jenny, think of your reader and think of people who are going to pick up your book. Trust God and love people. What hope do you have for them?
Oh, I hope that it can be encouragement to whomever, like whatever season they're in, that it can be an encouragement. I think that to remember who God is and remember the way he's been tangible and personal in your own story. Because I think at the end of the day, we all have a story. And I will say, I questioned it so many times writing this book. Like, who wants to
Mm,
read this? Like, this is just like my rambling about my life. And it's really writing it. I really wrote it for my kids. I want my kids to have these stories, but who
yeah.
else is going to care about this? And I think we all feel that way. Like, who am I? My
Yeah.
story is not really that unique or different or important. I'm not I'm literally just renovating homes. I'm not making, I'm not saving lives over here.
Yeah.
But I hope that by me telling my story, it inspires people to realize that their story is important too. And all of
Mm,
those little, even as small as they may seem, those God moments that we have, like no matter which ones they are, whether it's when somebody started like, not scared of grass, like that's a God moment. And
yeah.
you have the huge moments, but you also have the little ones, and just to recognize, remember them, honor them, be grateful for them, and really just again love people out of the heart of compassion that you've received through your trust in of God and his faithfulness.
Yeah. That's good. Couple quick questions at the end here. One, if you could go back to your 21-year-old self, what advice would you give?
Oh gosh. One. Go home early. I always was a night owl. We
Mm.
always said nothing good happens after midnight. I would tell myself, just go home early, like your old self does. I learned.
All right, good advice. Good advice. That's good. Anything you've been reading or watching lately you could recommend?
Okay. Well, I do love Heartland. If
Hmm.
you're a mom with girls or boys, I know I just watch. It's one of the shows that Charlotte and I love. Charlotte loves horses, and it's just one of those shows that's just happy, and I don't have to worry about what's going to happen. It's never inappropriate, and we love it. All the other kids pretend that they don't love it. It's Charlotte and I really love it, but they pretend they don't, but they always come on the couch and end up watching it with us because it's just a sweet story about like a family, and it's really good. So yeah,
Mm.
I would say
Heartland.
that. Yeah, Heartland.
Great.
Hmm.
That's good. Trust God, Love People is available anywhere books are sold. So you can go and get this wonderful book. I love your ramblings of your story, and that's what you just described it as. But
Yes.
it's a beautiful little book, and it's helpful for us to know that in your story and in our stories that God is faithful and that he's going to be with us in the moments that are difficult and hard, and the incredible moments and the happy
Hmm.
moments as well, that he is there and he's present and we could trust him in the middle of it, and he's faithful and we could love others well and compassionately. It's a great little book. So well done. So people could go out and get that. Is there anywhere else that you'd like to point people to? How could they
Um,
connect with you?
yeah. So I mean, I think if you just, Instagram is the only place I'm really active. Jenny Mars. I can't keep up with everything else, but our new season for the show will air sometime in December. But I'll announce it there once I have a date. Yeah, that's the only other thing.
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Excited to go watch the new season of the show. Like during Christmas break, I'll just watch a bunch of it. It'll be good. And so, Jenny, thank you for this conversation. I really, really enjoyed talking to you. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.